the Oculus Vive by Gamer Muscle videos. Now, unfortunately, not everybody has the resources to own an Oculus Vive, and as a result, I get asked every other day the question, which is the best VR headset? Specifically, which is the best VR headset for driving simulators? Because on our channel, we tend to be playing a lot of driving and flight simulators. So, in this video, that's the question that we're going to be answering. First things first, so I don't get too many angry comments, it's worth noting that both the Oculus Rift and the Vive are bloody fantastic, and hallelujah, virtual reality is actually here in our hands and doesn't cost £15,000 for 2 or 3 pixels of virtual goodness. With that out of the way though, it has to be said the best VR headset for racing and simulators, that's a way to excite you guys. Which one is he going to pick? The best VR headset for racing and flight simulators is the Rift. Now, that might be a surprise to some of you, because in general, when it comes to virtual reality, I do personally prefer the Vive. I find it makes me have more presence, the wider field of view pushes me in more, and in general, I find the lighthouse tracking to be just a little bit better than the Oculus Rift's constellation-based tracking. Now, the reason I've gravitated towards the Rift, specifically for simulators, is because when it comes to sat-down gaming, basic convenience, and performance, which is the biggest one, the Rift tends to work better. And I say performance, it's not really the headset, the hardware, that performance aspect really comes in. It's the software and the fact that Oculus have asynchronous space warp, whereas the Vive only has asynchronous reprojection at this point in time. What that means is, if you're playing games that typically weren't originally designed for virtual reality, which is basically driving and flight simulators, you're often going to be dropping below 90 FPS, unless you've got some absurd supercomputer. And even then, chances are you're probably going to get the occasional drop when menus load and things. It's just stuff's going to drop out, and it's going to be, you're going to go below that crucial frame rate. And specifically, the drivers on the Rift, on the actual software side, handle those situations better, which means you just don't have to be as concerned about the actual performance of your computer. You don't have to be as bothered about getting the settings just right in the game and making sure that you are definitely hitting that 90 FPS or definitely never going to get any stutters. Now, of course, the Vive does have, we're just going to keep picking up the one that we're talking about, of course the Vive does have reprojection, asynchronous reprojection in its software, and it does do a really good job of coping between going lower than that desired 90 FPS. The problem I've found, specifically when it comes to driving simulators, maybe less so flight simulators, is that with in both cases actually, with the asynchronous reprojection and the asynchronous space warp, the more you lean on that, the more it affects the driving. And if you're getting to the point where you're trying to improve lap times by milliseconds, you'll notice when asynchronous reprojection kicks on, and as I say, to some extent when asynchronous space warp kicks on with the headsets, you get a perception in sort of judder of the car's movement. When you go around corners, you can see the background juddering a bit, and it just makes the perception of speed for hitting brake points and modulating the car and balancing it through the visuals a lot harder. So I did find the asynchronous space warp, when that does happen, it smooths over that a lot more than asynchronous reprojection. But at the end of the day, you just notice with the Rift, when playing driving simulators, you can really hammer it and abuse it and not get close to frame rate and have a better end performance. Now, for driving simulators specifically, outside of the software, another aspect of the Rift that works particularly well, though it doesn't add immersion, in fact it probably takes away from the immersion, but in terms of the functionality of driving and seeing what you're doing in flight games, hitting targets that are in the distance, and you'll find in flight and driving simulators, when you get better at them, you tend to be looking more into the distance than you are looking at things close to you. Because it has a lower field of view, despite it having the same resolution screen in the headset, you get a sharper image with the Rift. And for driving sims, the more time you start putting into them, the more you begin to appreciate that tiny extra bit of detail, and the fact that you don't need to run as much super sampling to benefit from that detail. With the Vive, you know, it's not really a problem, the resolution. You can do it perfectly comfortably, but you will need a faster computer and you will need to run more super sampling to get a sort of image clarity and as usable image as you'll get with the Rift. For example, with the Rift, when I play driving sims like Assetto Corsa or iRacing, I will run about 1.3 super sampling, but with the Vive, I have to run at around about 1.5 super sampling to end up with a similar sort of functional clarity. Again, when you combine that with the performance aspect, you can see why, you know, unless you've got a supercomputer, the Vive starts getting more issues with frame rates, more issues with the occasional stutter, or more issues with it leaning on the reprojection. And lastly, serving a rather Andre Agassi serve, knocking the ball into the other end of the court and implanting it into a pensioner's face that thought they had a good seat at the front of the ball game, but instead ended off leaving the match with a concussion. The biggest advantage that the Rift has over the Vive is its price. Since not when it first came out, but since about 2 months ago, the Rift is just a lot cheaper than the Vive. If you're doing room scale and you're using the hand controllers and everything else, then the prices work out relatively similar. But if you're just going to be playing, and you know you're just going to be playing driving and flight simulators, you might as well just get the Rift, because it has the basic, the initial phone comfort there, the headphones built in with the strap that's built in. Whereas with the Vive, specifically for sim racing, as I say, you're going to want to replace the default foam. As you can see here, I'm using the 6mm VR cover foam. Affiliate link in the description. This foam is miles better than the default, but that's another, I think it's $12 to get that. And then you're also probably going to want to change the default strap. HTC are just releasing a new head strap, which will be a firmer, a sort of firmer head strap with the headphones built in. Basically, fairly similar to what the Rift has got, but that's going to be another £100. I think it's £100 or so, £90 or so. I don't know the exact price, but around about £100. So you know you're going to be ending up spending significantly more on the Vive when you could get the Rift out of the box without the without the touch controllers for £499. Though if you're in America, I think it's even cheaper. And I have noticed, I think Amazon Canada recently just did a price drop on it, so it probably won't be that long for it to even drop below $499. Maybe get to $450. Be interesting to see what happens. But really, for that price, what you get is basically virtual reality. For that price, I don't think you can complain. And specifically for simulators, racing simulators and flight simulators, an absolutely worthwhile, if not from my perspective, the only way to play driving simulators. I hope that finally answers the question for those of you that kept asking. If you keep asking, not only will I link you to this video, but I'll get the Queen to set her corgis on you, and that's not a pleasant way to die. If you found this useful, and maybe you want to get an Oculus Rift, check out the Amazon affiliate link in the video description. Don't forget to click the subscribe button as well to the channel for more virtual reality, flight and racing simulator coverage. Until the next one, goodbye everybody.